So the purpose of this evening's fact-finding work session includes presentations and discussions regarding the boundary changes to our Ogden municipal districts. This is an opportunity for the public to engage with the council on this specific issue. That's how fact-finding work sessions work. It is. Members of the public are welcome to speak for up to 3 minutes to the council. We will, if there are questions that are going to be asked, we will answer those questions as soon as we are in between comments. And this fact-finding session is scheduled for up to 1 hour, but may end early if the comments from the public appear to be finished. There's your question. There's an answer to your question, Bart. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with a. Well, I'll just remind the public that each member of the public may only speak one time, and we'll have a short presentation from staff, and then we'll get started on the public comment. All right, we'll welcome Ross Watkins to the mic.
Okay, so staff, we will be available to answer any questions. If you can't answer the question, feel free to turn to us. I'll try to have as much data open as I can. I don't know how deep people want to get into this. But just to give a short introduction, I feel like I've given this introduction like 10 times on this topic. So if this is boring to you, I'm sorry. It's the same stuff over and over again. So to start off, the census happened. Census information was sent to the state. State did redistricting at the legislative level, and then that kind of trickles down to the county, who has to draw new precinct boundaries, and then the precincts affect everything else in the city. So we have to, the city council has to adopt new city council district boundaries and voter participation areas so that they line up with those new precinct boundaries. Precincts were reduced from 45 in the city to 41. So some of the precincts swelled a little bit, especially in kind of in the northern end of the city. So we had to get a little bit creative to try to balance out the districts because they have to be equal in population. I'll get into that in a second. So the legislature established legislative boundaries back in November, and that set the clock for 6 months. We get 6 months to establish new municipal district boundaries. So that will expire in the middle of May. I've been telling you this whole time it's March. I was wrong. It's May. We still kind of have the goal for March, but if a lot of things come up tonight and everything just goes crazy, we technically have until May 10th. May 10th is the final date to adopt new boundaries. But for now, we can still shoot for March 15th. That's still okay to do. Now, what we have today, I put a slide up of the current map, current boundaries, and a couple of options. Now, for the public that may not be aware, maybe you didn't hear in a work session a few weeks ago, we had 3 different options, and those options came from a mixture of our office, legal, and GIS. We all sat down together in January, and we played with an interactive map where you can shift the boundaries, and it shows you the population in each district as you shift the boundaries. It gets a little bit tricky because they have to be equal in population, and not every precinct is equal in population. Some precincts are really population heavy. Some of them, like the airport, have like 50 people in them. So that whole huge precinct that goes around the airport hardly has any people in it. So it gets a little bit tricky when shifting around precincts, and that's why, they say districts have to be compact. This is as compact as it gets, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's hard to make them perfectly compact because sometimes you just have to spread them out because you have a big precinct with no people in it, So that's kind of where we came up with 3 map options. We discussed our office, GIS, and legal. We sat down and looked at some different ways to draw boundaries. We drew a couple of maps that were as similar to the map that we have right now as possible. And that's where option 1 came from. That's as close as we could get to the current map. There was some discussion back in December to spread districts east to west horizontally. So we played with that, came up with, Josh Jones came up with a really clean map. And that's what option 2 is. Something interesting about option 2 is it's actually the most equal in population out of all the options we came up with. It's very close. I think it only varies. I think the highest is like 2.8% from the median, which is really close. It's only, a few hundred people difference between each district in population, which is excellent. You don't want to have anything more than a 5% variation from the median. Both options 1 and option 2 are within that 5% variance from the median. So they're both substantially equal in population. And that 5% guideline came from the county. They're the one that gave us that recommendation. Just so you know, our office, Brandon and Eric did a lot of outreach on this just to make sure everybody knew about it, as many people as possible. They reached out on all the social media outlets, Instagram, Twitter. They shared a Facebook event. There was a press release on February 22nd. That was last Tuesday. And a link on the council website, as well as the dashboard, which gives all the information I'm giving you right now, and a couple of maps and a survey. We did have some people fill out the survey. I wouldn't say we got a significant number of responses. So we don't really have a very good sense of data to share with you from that. Maybe we'll get some more responses after tonight. I think that's all that I have for you. Again, this is probably all stuff I've told you a million times before, but I just wanted to give a little presentation just to set the stage for our exciting conversation today. That's all that I have.
Thanks, Ross. I'm sure, yes, we have heard it a lot, but we want to make sure everybody else who may not have heard it a lot has a chance to hear it too. One thing I'd add to your comments is that the purpose for the fact-finding work session is not just for finding facts, but to ensure transparency. This is a topic when you talk about boundaries that can be controversial. We want to avoid the controversy, and we're hoping that transparency is the salve for controversy. So good dialogue is certainly welcome. We're just trying to keep everything wide open as we do it. Anything else, council members, we need to add before?
I just have a quick comment and a question, and I just really appreciate Ross and Josh also for responding to my request to look at the quadrants, because some of the feedback we've gotten about option 2 is that people are concerned that will not allow for accurate representation, I would say, on the west side of the city, which I certainly appreciate, being in District 1. And so I had asked, well, what about quadrants? Because I feel right now, to me, it doesn't make sense necessarily to have District 2 going all the way across east to west if the other districts don't also reflect that. So I do appreciate them creating that quadrant map, and I understand, it didn't make it into the final selection process, but that would also give more representation to the west side of the community. Just want to put that out there. And then my other comment, I might have lost it. Anyway, I just appreciate you all being willing to share that configuration, and I'll think of my other comment then later.
Yeah, Josh did a lot of work. Every request I've had, he's been really quick getting back. So he's done an awesome job putting. He's made all these maps and put all the data together. So.
I just remembered. And I just wanted to say I appreciate Councilmember White for coming up, or asking about option 2, just so that I think, of course we don't want to be controversial in making people feel that we're changing the districts to advantage any group over another or something like that. But I think it's also really beneficial to let people know that we're willing to think more broadly, not just construct our thinking around what the past might have been, rather than, kind of think about what we should really do to represent the people.
There you go. So we've got option 1, which is a close and honest approximation of the current map with the changes reflected from the state legislature. And then option 2, which is a new potential approach that reflects some of the conversations we've had in the past. So these 2 options are kind of out there as for discussion and for fodder. So if there's no other questions, we can open up to the public for comment.
Yeah.
If there's questions, we'll come right back to you, Ross.
Yeah, and
Keep
I'll
the
be
answers
ready.
consistent. Okay.
Also, I do have data available. If you want to know like numbers, how many people are in each district, percentage off, I do have the information available. So I'll be
Perfect.
ready.
Thanks, Ross.
Yep.
Okay, we've got one person in attendance live, and
I'm surprised no one's here.
we've got a few people online too. But you want to start us off, Kathy?
I just had a couple comments.
Okay.
Kathy Darby. I live in Ogden. Address?
Nope.
Okay. I think everybody knows where I live now. I've complained about it. So, a couple things. When I was running for state legislature, it was the wackiest place. You know, there was like 42,000 people, and it went all the way out to West Haven, and then part of Roy, and then inner city east central of Ogden City. And it was just seemed insane to me that, you know, there was so many different people in that area that really had absolutely nothing in common. So it surprised me, but that's the number 2 one that you guys have is a little similar to that, where it draws from one end of the city all the way down to the absolute opposite end of the city. And I don't really know a lot about the people that live down there. Some of that was in my district. And I had West Ogden, you know, and stuff like that. And then I had, you know, the houses out in West Haven on several acres of land. So it just was sort of like, how did they come up with this? And then what they've done this year, some of it is really, really goofy. So they've thrown in some Riverdale and Washington Terrace with South Ogden, or, you know, just some wild stuff. So that's my only comment, is that I liked the way it was. I know that you have to change it for numbers, but I like option 1 because I think it's very similar and it won't confuse people, and they'll be, you know, they'll sort of understand where they stand. And I think that it's more of a light grouping of the citizens. So that's just really my only comment. I'm just surprised there's nobody else here. Really interesting. All they do is complain constantly, right? Whenever you make a decision, but no one comes to tell you what they think. But thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for understanding our plight. You're funny. Okay. Well, you're not alone. We are in 2022 now, so we've got online participation as well to make sure we've got accessibility for everybody. We'll start with Angel Castillo. Angel, state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Good afternoon. Thank you, Angel Castillo, Ogden City resident. I know that some of you all play golf, and for those of you who don't, golf has a handicap. And what that means, it allows someone who isn't very experienced to be able to play with someone who's really experienced. And the very first time I ever played golf, I was with someone who actually was older, but he had played on the PGA Tour. And I never would have been able to play with him if we didn't have something called a handicap. And a handicap is equity. And there's a difference between equal versus equity. Equal is everybody gets to walk on the golf course, everybody gets to take a certain number of swings, and if you exceed it, you're going to go over par or under par, and it is what it is. You all have the same chance. A handicap is equity. A handicap allows someone without the experience to be able to participate. I know you all have been sent a email by Dr. Jenny Nagy, who is an economist and a data scientist. And in that email, Dr. Nagy goes over how certain districts participate more. And we all know that there is a dividing line of Harrison, which relates to property value. And those who live on the side of Harrison closest to the bench tend to have a better economic status. The homes cost more. And when you have your basic needs met and when you have time, you participate. You volunteer for charities, you do civic work. And there are people in our community that have lower incomes and don't have that time. And if you look at the voting record, and it's in Dr. Jenny's email, the communities that live along the bench participate more. because they have more resources and they have more time to be able to participate. They vote more. And if you look at the survey's results as they stand now for this redistricting, those communities have participated more. There is not adequate representation in the other communities that may be of a lower socioeconomic income. So I highly advise you to adopt one, because the second one is maybe equal with population, but it has nothing to do with equity. For example, if 10 people in East Bench vote and only one person in East Central votes, the decisions are going to be made according to the East Bench. And if you go East-West, you have basically overprivileged a population with more of a voice than others based on socioeconomic status. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. I didn't hear any questions, so we won't bring you back up for that one, Ross. We'll go to Heath Sato.
Hey there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. Real quick, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents on this, and most of this has already been mentioned, but I just wanted to emphasize the point that I think we should leave the current districts as alone as possible while still meeting the population requirements. So that would be map 1. I am particularly opposed to the redistricting idea that has districts running fully east-west for much of the same reason Angel pointed out. I can see that the second map layout would give the East Bench and Shadow Valley far too much influence over, every single district. I believe that they would lead to inequity in representation, and I don't think that's good for anyone. So map 1 is my choice, and I hope that's the one you'll go with. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Heath. Any other? Wait 1 quick second, see if there's any other hands raised. Okay, we did not get any questions, so no questions to answer. Any discussion from the council?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay. Questions also from the council, yeah.
Okay. So when we were doing this, Ross, or when you were, working through this, were you cognizant of making sure that the current people in their positions stayed within a district?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the first thing we looked at was population. The second thing we looked at was keeping people within their districts. That was a consideration. I mean, it's definitely possible to redraw all the boundaries without considering the dots of where each person lives. So, I mean, that's something that we can definitely do. But yes, we did take that into consideration, keeping people in their districts.
But we have looked at also looking at the ordinance and changing that, correct?
Right. Yeah. So if somebody is districted out of their district, they can finish off their term. That's the proposed ordinance.
Thanks.
And for those following closely, that would be item number 4
Oh,
at our
sorry.
6 p.m., right? Is that what you're getting
Yeah,
at?
correct. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So people have asked me, because that's what happens when legislators redistrict, they make sure that they try to stay within their districts. And I just wanted people to understand that, yes, we did indeed do that, but yet we have taken steps to, if we do something different, to continue to let people be within their districts. So,
Yeah,
which is different than what the state legislators do.
Yeah, we did look at one option really early on that would have cut one council member out of their district, but Josh was able to make some minor tweaks and keep that particular member within his district, so it didn't seem significant enough to share the map where they were districted out. So,
and I just want to make a comment, and thank you, Councilmember Chaburka, for saying what you did, because all I was trying to do was get people to think outside the box a little bit on this redistricting. So I appreciate having you guys look at that and see what that would take. And at least it's gotten a conversation started about all of these other things. And so that was one of the reasons for doing that. The second reason is that I do think that sometimes we look at the boxes and the districts as representation of just that area. And I think we would be, it actually folds everyone into the district from east to west. And so I just thought it was a good thing to look at. I'm not necessarily stuck on that, but I just thought that it was a nice thing to do. So thank you for doing that as well. Well, I
just have a quick question, and I guess I feel like because we've put out these two examples of maps, that these are the two options we're giving the public to give feedback. I mean, are people able to give feedback even further about different options? I feel like they are. We haven't really limited what we're asking feedback about, right? So if people thought that other kinds of configurations were better, they could also tell us that. I just want to make sure that's clear, because we're having these discussions right now. It doesn't mean that we've made a decision that these are absolutely the two maps that we're choosing from.
Right. And I'll answer it if it's all right. Yeah, this doesn't mean that we're stuck with these two maps and only these two options. I guess we just wanted to put kind of the current approach and something else based on what we've heard out there, and then get feedback. If we're way out of whack, we felt like this would let us know one way or the other. I think the feedback we've got, at least this evening, is pretty consistent with what we've been doing. If there was other feedback that we're not getting tonight, and it was suggested we were way out of whack, we definitely have time and we've got tools to redraw. But I think from the conversations we had in past meetings, I don't think anybody's looking to make it controversial. None of us are. But what did you say? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, well, and I have to say, I mean, I'm definitely not
Yeah.
objective, as a resident, but also as a district holder. But I do just want to say, because people keep saying, oh, let's do it like we've done in the past. In 2010, I believe it was, before the districts were changed as they were, the whole west side was District 1. Am I remembering that correctly? Mm-hmm. I believe so. So we did change things quite a bit the last time. So just saying, well, let's do it like how we've always done it, that's not really the case, even from 2010.
True.
So I just want to make that clear.
And I think there's a lot of ways we could do it that wouldn't be broken either. That's there's some extreme changes. There's some tweaks, I guess, and I think this has been a good opportunity to kind of get a sense for if we're close or not. So, any other comments or questions from council members?
I guess I'll just respond a little bit to the District 2 east to west comment that was made. And while I do represent District 2, I quite frankly don't see a much difference between the east to the west. Of course, all of it, almost all of it, is below Harrison, as was mentioned in the public comment. It isn't a prosperous area of town. It does seem to be pretty homogeneous in its boundary. So I don't know if, I guess I'm just saying the geography probably isn't really the issue there.
That kind of jives with my mindset too when I think about your district. I'm sure there are unique things east to west within your district, but in my mind, when I think about needs and service and so on, I kind of look at it similar to how the map is drawn. But
I think just to that point, I have looked at a little bit in the voter turnout, kind of to the commenter's comment, speaking to survey responses or voter turnout, which is something I know we're not really supposed to consider. However, the voter turnout on the northwest side of town is even lower than District 1 at this point. So I'd just like to mention that.
okay, there's no other questions from the public, so I guess we'll convene the fact-finding work session and reconvene in our original work session, probably just staying where we're at if it's okay with you, Janine.
I'm sorry, you want to stay here?
Do we have anything else to
Anything else?
cover in the original work session from 4 p.m.?
I actually have one other thing that we could cover. And
Okay, so we'll call it good for the 5 p.m. fact-finding work session, and we're back to business as continued from our 4 p.m. work session. Back to you, Janine Eller-Smith.
We need a motion?
Don't think so, do we?
No, we're good. Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's in the other It's in the other room.
So we're moving?
Yeah, I think we need to
Oh,
move.
we do have to move?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to move back to the other room.
And then you can have your lunch too.
But we don't need a motion to convene this, right? Okay.
Concern is the Shadow Valley.
Or adjourn it.
Adjourn it.
Okay, thanks. See you guys on the other side.